Hello, and in this DBIntegrate demonstration today I'm going to show you how we create a mapping job. This is a way of transferring data from one data source to another, and in this instance it will be a flat text file which I'm going to map over to a SQL Express table. So the first step is to load up DBIntegrate. We already have our data sources already added in, which I've shown you how to do in a previous demonstration video, so please check that out if you would like further information on doing this. So we have our data sources, email list, 23 rows, really simple made up data for this example, and a SQL Express table which is currently empty, so we want to take all the data in the text file and put it over to our email table. So there are two ways of doing that. We can do it directly from the DBIntegrate mapper, or we can create a project which will be able to rerun from the designer at any point in time that we want, which is what I'm going to do in this instance. So I'm going to create a new file and it loads up the project window. And all I need to do is select mapping, as I want a mapping job, and press that in the middle of the designer here. I then simply select the data source I want, left mouse click, hold down and drag it onto the project, and I reproduce that step with the SQL table. I then need to define the order flow of which is the source table and which is the target table. So to do that I select the source table, I right click and I select connect from this to, and this creates an arrow, and then I'm just going to hover it over the mapping job and then click to release. I then connect the mapping job to the target data source in the same manner. Get the mouse and drag it, hover it over the target table and release the mouse. So this is defining our process flow, with the mapping job being where the processing and definitions will be defined. The next step is to create a file name and assign it to a directory to be saved in. Which I will just do. And this creates a DBI map file extension which uses XML structure underneath. Select OK. There are also some advanced options. I'm just going to select truncate tables. So that will empty out the SQL table every time I want to run the project. And select OK. So that's made this mapping job a name, but it's got an exclamation mark beside it, which means it hasn't yet been created, it's still new. So if we right click on it and do edit job, this brings up a prompt to say this mapping job does not exist, would you like to create it? If I was to hit cancel at the moment, it would just not create the job, no file would actually be created in your directory, but hitting OK creates that file. And it loads up our DBIntegrate data mapper. What we've got here is the source information, and also over here on the right hand side our target table information. We can see all our column types and all the data types. In this example they're all quite simple, just varchars and a timestamp as well. So the next step is to define our mappings. There's a couple of different methods that we can do in DBIntegrate. We can do direct mapping, which is literally just taking the information from the source table and dragging it to the target table, and this assigns it a blue colour with a little arrow here, which is our key for direct mapping. We can also do constant mapping, which is where we say this is a value I want all our source records to have. So for example, we know all our records are coming from the United Kingdom and they're all country. So this gets a green colour and a green circle as the key for that method. Also available is variable mapping, which is from our use of processing functions. So I'll pop a very simple one in, and then in a later video I'm going to go into more detail on doing conditional processing and record checks. So in this example I'm going to do now, I'm going to add a function to make sure that all our surnames are returned in uppercase. So to do that, I right click on this before step in this kind of processing steps area here, and I press add function. This then brings up our long list of processing steps that we have within DBIntegrate. All of these functions are documented with examples and a little image of use, so you can understand what each one's doing quite well using that documentation. Just going to go down to the function I'm interested in, which is DBI to upper. And as we can see from the description, it says get uppercase representation of string, which is exactly what we want to do. Press OK, and this creates the little processing function here in the window. All I need to simply do is select the column I want to put into capital letters and drag it to the string input argument, and then just set a name for this function so that we can call it. So I'm just going to call it v_name, and we can see it's appeared here in this little variable window, which you can then use to drag your variable up to your target field mapping. You can also drag directly from the processing steps window as well. And then lastly, the type of mapping we can do is auto mapping. Now this creates a direct mapping essentially, but it just does it automatically for you based on their field names if they are identical within the source and target table. So we've got a little button here, auto map source fields to target. If we press that, it's going to ask us if we'd like to automatically map all the fields, and because we do, we're going to press OK. It then tells us how many fields are mapped. So in this case we've got 3 mapped, and we press OK, and you can see that full name, date of birth and email have now got the blue direct mapping key against them. And that's just a really very simple, quick and dirty DBIntegrate mapping job. So we just want to make sure we save that first. And now you have 2 options with DBIntegrate. You can run a mapping job standalone using the DBIntegrate runtime, which is what we're going to do, and then I'll also show you it running from the project window as well, just so you get a feel of what it looks like in both cases. So I do run DBIntegrate runtime from the task menu. This brings up our runtime window. You've got quite a few options in this window. I'm just going to stick with the very basic at the moment, the full run, but I will change the level of logging just so you can see it in this example. So I'm going to select full and then press run. So we've got 23 records processed and we've got 12 failed records. Now this is because the date of birth data type in their SQL database is a date time, and some of the records in our source table are either blank or they contain text, so they're going to fail. And I will show you how we can put a processing function against that record in order to make sure that those records don't fail but just return a default value. So first we'll just take a quick look at this log. And as you can see here in this example, we've got input surname Tyler in lowercase, and that's returned as Tyler in uppercase, which is exactly what we would want it to do. And in this example here, we've got a date which has been empty, so that's failed on the insert into the SQL database because it couldn't pass the date time value with the correct pattern. And if I just show you our target table, we can see it's got 11 rows of the original 23, and they're all in a nice date of birth format there. So to resolve the issue of the other records, again I'm going to add a function. This time I'm going to call a function called DBIntegrate. There it is. I'm going to press OK. This function has two arguments, so for the date argument I'm going to put in my input string, and then I'm going to assign a default value for if the date is incorrect or it's not a valid date. So I'm just going to put 1900-01-01 and press OK. I'm going to set to variable, and then I'm just going to drag that up to become the new mapping for the job. I'm going to save this job now, and I'm going to run it from the project designer so you can see what it looks like there. So we can see that the mapping jobs become black text here, which means it's found the job, it knows where it is. But in order to be able to run this job, I need to quickly save this project. And this creates a .dbi project extension, which cannot be opened, it can't be read, it's serialized. And now what we can do is either right click on the project which has appeared in our tree here and select run project, or we can use this play icon up here. I'm just going to select run project here. And it's gone green and it's telling us that the mapping job's finished 100%, and this time all 23 records have been written and 0 have failed. And if I open up the table, because we put truncate targets on earlier on in this video, we haven't got the additional 11 records from the earlier run, we've only got the 23. And if I press fetch, you can see we've got a few 1900 records which weren't in the previous run because they failed on the date parse. And I'll just show you that table. If I open up my SQL Express, I've just got a select star SQL query, and then if I execute that I can see the records are also in the database there as well. Okay, so thank you for watching that short little demo video. I hope that's given you a bit of an insight into creating a mapping job. Please check out some of our other videos on TranssoftTube, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me, mharrigan@transoft.com. Thank you.